Hey guys, came back here at the Battle Workshop. Well, it's been quite a few months since I've spent any real time in here doing anything. And I wanted to put together a separate video just to explain why that was. I didn't want to put it in my usual build video, so I thought it probably deserves a video on its own as to why it's been so long since I've done anything with YouTube. And the reason for that is that my father has been very, very sick. He went into hospital before Christmas after having a fairly severe fall at home. Dad had a major stroke nearly 18 months ago and really hasn't recovered from that stroke. He went into hospital. He was in hospital for a couple of weeks recovering from that fall. He went home and had another serious fall and came back into hospital and hasn't been home since. During his stay in hospital, for the second time around, he has deteriorated. He fell into bouts of delirium, and I can tell you when you see somebody in a state of delirium, it is a rather shocking sight, particularly when it's a loved one like your father. We did have some fairly frank conversations with the doctors about Dad's prognosis, and they were suggesting that Dad would be moving into a palliative care mode fairly quickly, and that his time was going to be fairly limited. He was fighting some fairly severe infections, which was probably bringing on the delirium states that he was in. And because of his age, he's 87, we didn't want to have any major invasive procedures done. They were running him with fairly broad spectrum type antibiotics to try and get those infections under control. And towards the end of his stay, whilst he was in hospital, he was starting to come good. And as a result, now he's moved into a transition program at a facility called Alan David Lodge, which is a part of the hospital. It's funny when you get news like that from doctors that time is going to be short, and the things that go through your mind, and you start thinking about funerals, and you start thinking about eulogies, and you start thinking about how to celebrate somebody's life and how to go about that. But since he's been in transition care, the bugger's started coming good. He's a lot brighter than I have seen him in an awful long time. You can have a conversation with him, and it's quite a flowing conversation, although he does suffer from dementia, and a lot of those conversations are Dad believing he's back in the 1950s and 60s, and the conversations are rather surreal, to say the least, when somebody's in the past but actually in the present, and that's the way his mode of thinking is at the moment, and that's one of the one of the conditions of dementia when you get to that stage. Dad is married. He's married to a Filipino woman called Leah, and they've been married nearly 10 years, well, over 10 years now. And I must admit, Leah has been an absolute rock. Anything that a human and the human body can throw at you, she has endured. She has shown it with dignity and absolute respect, and we're just so grateful that Leah has been the type of person that she has with Dad. And while he's still in the transition care, she's in there every day, feeding him, grooming him, doing his hair, his nails, doing all his washing. Every day she's in there, and it's a fair trip to get out there from where she lives by bus. And it's a number of buses that she needs to make to get out there. So we're very, very grateful for Leah's love to Dad. As I said, he's going to be moving across into an aged care facility within the Alan David Lodge facility where he is at the moment. So we've gone from what was going to be a palliative care into an aged care mode now. And just some advice to anybody who is in this sort of situation: you need to get powers of attorney for financial and medical set up before you get to a state where you're unable to do so. It has been absolutely horrific trying to work with superannuation funds, pension funds, the banks, government agencies without the authority, and there's been numerous trips in and out to the facility for Dad over the phone to answer the 20 questions to prove who he is and that he's of sound mind before they ask, can your son deal with these issues, and that has been very, very laborious and extremely hard. If we had the power of attorney, financial power of attorney, this would have been such a much simpler process. So if you've ever got a parent or yourself going to that sort of position, really consider powers of attorney to make it easier for your family to help you to get the best outcomes for you, because I can tell you without that power of attorney it is just so difficult. Working in aged care, or working through the aged care system, I can tell you is an absolute minefield, and it is an absolute mess to try and work through. You'll never deal with the same person twice. You'll get different opinions, different answers to the same questions that you ask. There are so many roads that you can go down in this aged care system for assistance from the government, and a lot of it depends on your particular situation, your financial situation, and your assets. And there are so many rabbit warrens you can go down. You can spend a week going down the wrong rabbit warren and then realising, no, the situation doesn't fit. We ended up going to a specialist financier that deals in aged care, and it was the best $330 we've ever spent. We sat there for an hour, we gave them all the information, and they matrixed through that and told us exactly the road that we need to take and exactly what we need to do and how we need to do it. And it just cut through all of the unknowns for us, and it was so well worth it. So we've got through that particular side of the process. But dealing with government departments, in our particular case Centrelink, it is just, it just does your head in. And I don't know how anybody who may be aged can deal with that on their own. It's just so unuser friendly. Part of that process of setting up the finances are to obviously set that up so that he is going to be well cared for. But on the other side of the coin, we need to make sure that Leah is financially cared for and looked after. So there's a real juggling act there about how you set those finances up. And I think we've got a very good balance now. So Dad is going to be well cared for. He's very, very happy in the place that he's going to be in. And Leah is going to be looked after financially. She's going to be able to live a life that she can be relatively comfortable with. So we're very, very grateful that we've been able to get that sorted out. Still a bit more paperwork to go through. We now have the financial and medical powers of attorneys set up, which is going to make anything further on so much simpler. So I urge you, if you're ever in that situation, go and get the authorities for your finances and your medical passed on to somebody that you trust. So moving forward, that's taken up an awful lot of my time. I have been doing some very long hours at work and working weekends as well. So that's sort of thrown a bit of a spanner into the works as well. So dealing with Dad's issues between myself and my brother, and dealing with work, I've just lost enthusiasm to come out here to the workshop. I come home from work and I'm just absolutely flocked. I just crash out on the couch. So that's what it's been like for me for the last few months. I just haven't had the motivation or enthusiasm to come out here and do anything, which is not like me. So the next series of videos I'm going to put together are going to carry on with our casting up the housing for that small jib crane. I have completed the patterns, and we'll go through that. I did break one of my cardinal rules that got me a little bit unstuck, and I'll go through what that is too. The cope and drag boxes are all made up. I've dug out some of my old green sand from when I used to run my foundry many years ago, and we're going to show you how to mull that sand when you don't have a traditional muller. Everybody, I can guarantee you, everybody will have a muller in their home, and I'll show you how we're going to do that. It takes a lot of the backache out trying to mull by hand when you can use this little method, and it's very simple. So stay tuned for that, and we'll get that video out fairly soon, and we'll try and start getting this project back on track. Alright guys, we'll see you soon.